See, we did it without Eva for once.
Yeah, we did it.
Yay!
And it's a Monday morning, and I woke up without personal complaint, because usually I wake up and I go, oh,
I wonder why. It's because I was the one complaining the whole time. I gave you no room to complain. I woke up like 5 minutes before recording and was like,
I woke up before you. That's got to be a first.
That is definitely a first. My Apple Watch that is from like 1995, I still have it, and all it basically does anymore is track my sleep. It told
Your
me
Apple Watch from 95? That's not even a good joke.
Okay, fine. My baby G watch from
okay. Your calculator watch that's also a phone book. Yeah.
And it's a slap watch too, so you could slap it on. It said I slept over 10 hours last night because I'm so behind on sleep.
I feel for you.
So it was a lovely time, but I didn't want to get up. I wanted to hit 11, 12 hours, but it was my idea to record at 10 a.m., so it is my fault. And yes, we are talking about 10 a.m., folks. Some of you will probably want to punch us in the face for complaining about getting up for 10 a.m.
We recognize our privilege.
We do.
That we get to be our own bosses and make our own hours. But you know what? I will say, the perk of getting to sleep in every day, I still feel like I do the equivalent amount of work because I end up staying up late. Like,
exactly.
It's all proportional.
We just shift everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, everyone else is done working usually by, like, 5 or 6, and I feel like I'm still working at 8, 9, 10. So,
oh, yeah. And now that I have, like, Eastern time, and you're now on Eastern time, but you're usually on Pacific time, I feel like my day, it's nice because my day doesn't, with Leona, I have the morning with her, but then my like work day doesn't really start till noon.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't end till like 8 or 9 p.m. So it's like, well, I don't know. It's all
relative.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not as stressed as you are currently.
I'm fine. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. Take 2. I'm fine. Oh, that was worse. I'm fine. No, okay. You go ahead.
I'm fine. Yeah,
I'm not fine.
No, you're about to go on your big international trip, and that overwhelms me just as a concept. So,
conceptually speaking,
I don't envy you. I do because I know you'll still have fun, but the logistics of it all, it's
very daunting. Yeah,
sending you good vibes.
Thank you.
But no, I'm good. I hung out with my hometown friends yesterday.
How's the funcle life? You're now funcle to multi-babies.
It's currently a good life because I have done nothing.
That's the dream. Yeah.
I have held the baby's hand on the day he was born, but then I haven't seen him since he was born, so I'm actually going over later today to hold him for the first time.
Oh, take photos.
Oh, it's a little baby.
So cute.
And he likes to sleep. I like to sleep. So far we've got a lot in common. So
it's like when Leona started eating tomatoes, and you were like, "I finally got." We got it. We got each other.
We see each other. Yeah. But no, I'm gonna hold him later today, and that's kind of my whole agenda. So
good for you.
You know, it's a good life. I got really nothing to report on. I'm trying to think of a good reason why I drink, but I guess the reason I drink is because, like, for like 5 seconds, I feel like I've got some relaxing time.
Good.
So, tell me all about your feelings and your thoughts and your everything about this big trip coming up.
Oh my. Well, I'm drinking. Oh, by the way, I meant to tell you real quick. I'm drinking coffee out of the mug you gave me.
What is it? Hold on, let me see. My documents are in the way.
It says,
now it's an old one now, homie.
Married bitches. I think
what are you drinking in it?
Coffee with lots of yummy creamer.
I'm drinking Deer Park because I don't have that on the West Coast, and I missed her.
Yeah, so. I know you have that favorite brand.
DP.
DP, right? No, I'm good. You know what? I'm good. I'm chilling.
Okay.
Sort of.
Any updates on like your travels that
I
you
bought, as you know, I bought everything that the internet sells for traveling and for toddlers. I have some fun Gabby's Dollhouse coloring books ready to whip
Mm.
out during a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, today's packing day.
Do you have any big things you're looking forward to on your trip?
Oh, well, the last time I went to Sweden, I found out my boyfriend cheated on me and I tried to jump off the boat into the fjord.
Okay.
And so
So
I'm excited to not do that this time.
unless Blaze has a really some bad
oh,
news to tell
bad
you.
news. That's true. And that's true. I got to be really careful. Because, yeah, Sweden has done me dirty in the past, but it's a great country. I'm very excited. And I'm excited this is going to sound terrible, but we're not really seeing like a lot of relatives. Like I have so many relatives over there.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. I don't mean in a mean way about them. It's just like it adds so much stress and I don't know, and socializing and all that. So I'm excited. And Blaze's parents are coming and they've never been. So we get to kind of show them around and
you're going to get a car out of it.
oh yeah, by the way, I'm getting a car. That's part of the reason we're going. And we decided that I think I'm going to try to take my car and drive it through Europe.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So like as like a little road trip. So
what do you know where you're going to be stopping?
I think Hamburg.
Okay, thank you.
Or Berlin. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe Berlin.
Do you have a favorite place over there that like?
Yeah, I love this. Not even in Germany, but I love Vienna, which is we're spending a couple of days in Vienna.
Nice.
It's so beautiful there. I can't wait to take you there one day.
Well, you got to get me some good food recommendations and nap spots. And
well,
then
I was going to say,
okay.
I learned that in Sweden they have this thing called fika, which in Germany they also have. I imagine it's similar to a Spanish siesta. I'm not really sure, but it's like basically coffee and cake hour. And like in Germany, like I swear to God, the world stops. Like at like 2:00, everyone's like, okay, bring out the coffee, bring out the cake, bring out the tea. And everyone just like takes an hour or two. I mean,
every other country does everything better than us.
Exactly. Like, what are we thinking? We took the worst parts and brought them here.
And why? Because like, at my last job, everyone gets the munchies around 3:00. So obviously I get it with the cake thing.
It's the energy dip, you want like a tea or a coffee and some sugar.
So like naturally in our bodies, we all get that feeling anyway. So why don't we just give into it?
Come
I don't understand.
And so, yeah, I'm excited because my parents very vehemently support coffee and cake hour. And the fact that I found out Sweden does the same thing, I was like, I already booked all our like little, not booked, but I like picked all the best little spots to make sure we're getting a good.
That's
and apparently in Sweden, it's cinnamon buns. So in Germany, it's like cake, and in Sweden, which makes sense now at IKEA why they sell those cinnamon buns.
It's for when you're shopping, and then when 2:00 hits, you stop your shopping.
You sit down in one of the beautiful living rooms they've set up for you.
Do you know what I found out about the Burbank IKEA? Which, by the way, if you're not from California or from Southern California, Burbank is apparently known for its IKEA. I have told people I live in Burbank, and they go, "Oh, they have IKEA." They're like we're like the only area in Los Angeles that has an IKEA, and people usually come all the way to Burbank when they're moving somewhere.
I've spent a lot of time at that IKEA,
and I just talked to somebody here in like Virginia, and I was like, "Oh, I live in Burbank," and they were like, "Oh, IKEA."
Are
and
you
I was
shitting me?
I was like, "There are other IKEAs.
What?
You live here where there
like
is an IKEA."
There's at least a dozen, like within. I don't know, 200 miles of you.
Yeah, well, so apparently that IKEA is the largest IKEA in the continent.
Huh?
Fun fact.
And think of the real estate.
I was like, no wonder everyone knows about this fucking IKEA.
Okay, I remember that used to suck because you used to have to park across the street and
Yeah,
then they
and then
would
they
have
moved
like a
it.
loading zone and you would have to drive. And so when I was by myself, I'm like, well, I don't have any friends to stand here and like hold my furniture, so I'd have to like leave it, run, get the car. But they changed it all, so it's much better now.
IKEA is a team event.
It needs to be. I don't know what I was thinking going alone, but Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
I don't know what we were talking about. Oh, Sweden and their cinnamon rolls. Yes. So I'm excited for that. Just be prepared for a lot of photos of my food and my cake. So
that sounds great to me. I very much miss my during COVID. I was setting like every like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I was having tea time with myself.
yes, tea time. Exactly. Like you get it.
It was lovely.
I
It was lovely.
know. You should pick that back up.
Everyone, it is whenever you listen to this, you have permission from us in case you need the permission and the external validation. You have permission. We give you the freedom to go give yourself an hour and do whatever you want today.
That's right. And if your boss asks, say you have not a doctor's note, but a podcast note.
So we got it covered. Don't even worry about it. Also, reminder to drink, thirsty little rats.
Okay, I'm drinking coffee. Does that count?
Well, stay hydrated however you need to, but put something in your mouth.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I want to edit none of those
orders.
words.
No, as you shouldn't.
Okay, well, Christine, I got a classic haunt for you today. This is in Milwaukee.
Ooh, I love Milwaukee. I've only ever been there with you.
I know. I've only ever been there with you.
Hmm.
There's a pattern, it seems.
That's weird. I wonder why.
This is a cigar bar, which you know we love those.
I've only been there with you.
Hang on. Allison just texted me.
Oh no! What did she say?
I don't understand the context, but it said, oh. She responded with, I feel like one day I'm going to look back at all this and see that this was the first sign of mental illness for you.
The first sign? I'm sorry. No offense, Em, but the first sign? Are you shitting me? Where's she been?
Like, is she not listening? Because I tell her every day that I'm so mentally unwell. I was going to
say, does she not realize?
Yeah, well, she's the context. She's right. She's right about what I said to her.
I mean, I don't doubt that for a minute. But what were you talking about? You don't have to tell me.
Well, so Allison goes to bed really early.
Yeah.
And
speaking of our schedules,
I mean, it's gonna truly sound like I'm mentally unstable. Because she goes to bed early, I'm very when I
you don't have to tell me if you don't want.
No, it's just stupid. One of my favorite things to do is just shout affirmations at her.
Oh, good.
And oh yeah, she's so unfortunate to have someone encouraging her every 5 seconds. Allison, if you're listening.
To be fair, that wasn't the mentally ill part, so apparently she's on board.
Well, so she goes to bed so early, and it's become a habit where I just shout affirmations just because I know that she's got something, that she'll hear something. So now when she goes to bed, I just keep doing it. I just keep saying
while you're across the country, you mean, or what?
No. Like when she goes to sleep at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, I just get a weird stim compulsion, where I just still want to say nice things about her, even though she's not in the room.
Oh, I see.
So I'll just be working, and all of a sudden I'll be like, "You're so pretty," and then I realize she's not in the room, and. So now we've made a thing where I just talk to fake Allison when she goes to bed.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm seeing now where this became a little concerning.
Yeah, so in the morning I'll be like, oh, I talked to fake Allison. I told her she's beautiful, so everything should be covered for the rest of the day.
I love though, she has to be the most supportive partner to say this is the first sign of mental illness. I've known you for a long time. Anyway, she's clearly has blinders on, so you're lucky, Em.
She's saying it because since we're across the country, I was telling her I've been talking to fake Allison a lot more recently since our time schedules are different. I was like, so anyway, she was her response was, I feel like one day I'm going to look back and see that this was the first sign of mental illness. I
love that you're about to start your story and that comes in. She has impeccable timing, that one.
She does. I'll talk to fake Allison about it later, though.
Okay, great. Me too, while we're at it,
Yeah, might as well. Okay, so anyway, this is a cigar bar. It's called Shaker's Cigar Bar.
Okay.
And I guess we just get into it. So it was built in 1894. It's in Milwaukee, and it's built on a previous cemetery, of course.
Sure, why not?
Fun fact, do you know the difference between a graveyard, a cemetery, and a burial ground?
Ooh, I just got goose cam from just the question.
I asked fake Allison. She didn't have a fucking answer, of course.
She was like
stupid Allison.
tallying your mental illness scores, adding one more. Check. Let's see. A graveyard, a cemetery. No, I don't.
I found this out yesterday because I went to a cemetery and I went on a tour of a cemetery.
Cool.
I regret it because it was so fucking hot out, and I was like, and I was the only person on the tour.
Wait, what? What the fuck?
I was the only person on the tour. I don't know why. I thought 3 p.m. is when everyone goes on a cemetery tour. So I went, and it was just so fucking hot. I couldn't even hear half the things he was saying, and I had to keep looking interested because there was nobody else.
Well, yeah, you can't even hide behind someone. That sucks.
It was just the two of us. It might as well have been a fucking Bumble date, like, to go to the cemetery.
Was.
He said a graveyard is attached to a church.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah.
And a cemetery is not. And then a burial ground doesn't even have, like, monuments or stones or anything. It's just a plot of land that people bury dead bodies.
Gotcha. So it's not even, like, meant to be sacred or have, like,
right.
Headstones. Okay. Wow, Em, that's cool. That is a fun fact.
So Shaker's Cigar Bar is built on a cemetery, so it's not attached to a church.
Gotcha.
Good, because I don't know if a church wants to share land with a cigar bar.
I mean, listen, priests have a few vices. Usually it's wine, but I get that.
It's
I bet they could
blood
get
of
behind
Christ, actually. So
that's true. It
relax.
is. That's true. You're right.
Until the 19th to 20th century, the cemetery was untouched. Nothing else was going on there until about the 19th or 20th century. Then Milwaukee wanted to expand, and they had nowhere to do it except on top of their older cemeteries.
Oops.
So many people couldn't actually afford to move their loved ones when they knew the construction was coming. And so those bodies were left in the ground, and
they get rid of the headstone. I'm sure that's just classy.
You just have to write down somewhere what acre they're on, I guess.
Yeah, you got to stand in the cigar bar, and they're like, excuse me, I'm sitting here, and you're like, do you mind?
Right,
I'm bringing flowers. Just like, sit them on a booth in the corner.
So when they decided to build over the cemetery, the location that is currently Shaker's Cigar Bar was originally a cooperage house. Do you know what a cooperage house is?
It sounds like a chicken coop, but I don't know.
That's what I also thought.
Okay, you made a face, and I was like, am I about to be so embarrassed? Okay, good.
No.
Glad it's not just
Well,
me.
I've always heard the name Cooper, and I thought, oh, that's someone who makes coops.
Oh,
like
barrels.
Barrels.
How do I know that? I don't know, but it just popped in my head when you said the last name Cooper. I was like, I think that means barrel maker.
It is. So,
okay.
So a cooperage house was a house that made barrels, and specifically this building made barrels to transport Schlitz beer.
Yes.
And so that was what the building originally was. And then in 1922, it was bought by the Capone brothers.
Oh, that fits.
So Al and Frank Capone, they opened it, of course, into a speakeasy, because I've never heard them open anything into, like, a library. It's had to be something bad. And they
nothing bad about a speakeasy, Em. You watch your mouth.
Okay, maybe in 1922 it wasn't all good, but
probably when we get into the details, yeah.
In today's world, the speakeasy is divine.
I was just at one in Knoxville. I had a great time, but I'm
Were
sure
you?
It was a different vibe.
What was the theme? A speakeasy can't not have a theme.
Okay,
these days.
so I don't know if you'll love this or not, but it was like a library.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, good, because I know you're not like a huge like book person, but all the characters were named. Like the drink I got was called the Violet Baudelaire from
Willy Wonka.
No, oh my God, Christine.
Violet Beauregard wasn't
Beauregard.
That was Willy Wonka, wasn't it?
No, not Beauregard. Baudelaire from the things that are all bad. All the things are bad. Christine.
Willy Wonka.
Lemony
Things were pretty
Snicket.
bad.
Lemony Snicket. A series of unfortunate events.
Did I just have this conversation with you?
Did I? Because I feel like I should have had it
Who was
better
I?
this time.
Who was I talking to? I was just talking to someone about all you could do with a library themed bar. I was just talking about this with someone.
Oh, well, they did a good job. But Violet, did you ever read that?
No.
A Series of Unfortunate Events. So they had like characters named after different books drinks named after different characters. It was really cool.
I was just talking about this. I was just talking about this with someone. Oh my god.
Was it fake Allison?
It might have been fake Allison. Because I was just talking about like how good oh, maybe it was Allison. It was real Allison, I think.
Oh, okay.
For
important
once.
distinction.
Because I asked her like, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? Like if like money was nothing, what would you like what? And she said she wanted to open her own bookstore with a coffee shop in it. But it was also like a bookstore that turned into a bar at night or something. So like, it ended up being like a library themed bar. And I was talking about like, oh, even like, you know, how at like cafes and a bookshop, they've got like fun little drinks for kids. And I was like, think of like what you could do with little like fun drinks for kids. And I was like, oh, the Curious George would be like a peanut butter banana smoothie. And like,
oh my God, that's really cute.
Anyway, very weirdly timed in the universe because we just talked about this.
It is weirdly timed. And I thought of you because I know you love a speakeasy.
Oh, and I love a theme.
I know you do.
I love a theme. Wow. Okay. Next time I visit you, we'll go.
Yeah, it's in Knoxville, so it's 4 hours south. But yeah.
Next time I'm in Knoxville, I'll text you for the address.
Excellent.
Okay, so Shaker's was originally a cooperage house and made barrels for Schlitz beer. In 1922, the Capone brothers turned it into a speakeasy, and they would smuggle beer from Canada.
Oh.
And their front, the name of their like fake restaurant or building, so that way no one would know it was a speakeasy, was ABC Soda Company.
They're like, which week? A, B, C. Got it. Yeah. Nailed it. First try.
I guess there's an ABC like liquor company,
there is an
right?
ABC liquor. Oh, interesting.
I wonder if that was on purpose, if that was a play on words like, oh, you know the ABC that we're talking about, but this is ABC Soda.
Yeah, nothing, not related.
The speakeasy was in the warehouse district, so I guess a lot of its clientele were people who were working in the middle of the day, so they would come in on their like lunch shifts or in the middle of their shift. But it was also at nighttime a gambling hall and brothel.
Hell yeah.
And because it was mob run, it is difficult to know how many people died there, but it's suspected that a lot of people died.
Right.
There. Thus, many of the deaths have become local legend because all people can do is guess how people died.
Mm.
And the staff has actually tried really hard to put the pieces together and has worked with historical societies to learn as much as possible, which I like that they're trying to find the bodies or at least honor the names.
Yeah.
The most notorious death that they've been able to figure out here is of Molly Brennan, who was an Irish 16-year-old who was also the most popular of the sex workers.
Oh, no.
While 16, she worked the penthouse as the most popular sex worker and was murdered and dismembered for unknown reasons.
Dear Lord. That's dark.
Some say she might have like a client met up with her, and when they saw each other face to face, she realized it was someone that she knew. And so like afraid that he would get found out that he was like with her. The story, that's kind of one of the ideas of what must have happened.
Okay.
Another version is that maybe she was killed by like a jealous client or like a jilted suitor.
I mean, listen, people have killed women for much less.
Yeah, maybe she didn't laugh at his joke.
Yeah,
that could also have done
especially when it comes to sex workers, I feel like I've watched enough SVU to know this has not changed much as far as needing
for all
a
you know,
reason.
that's what he was like. He was into pain and like
who
did
knows?
something, went too far or something. So it could be anything. Another death was in the 1840s when the land was still a cemetery and it had an orchard on it. and there was an 8-year-old
Oh,
named Elizabeth,
no.
and she fell out of one of the trees of the orchard and died.
Oh my God.
We also know that there were people murdered in the Speakeasy, and sex workers died upstairs a lot. Um, and that could be either homicide, suicide. We don't really know all the reasons, but multiple different types of deaths upstairs. And in 1932, Al Capone goes to prison, and a year later, Prohibition ended. That being said, the brothels were in operation for like another 13 years.
Mm.
So from 1946 to the 1980s, the history of the property is really hard to nail down. But we do know that by the 1980s, a guy named Bob reopens it as a cigar bar.
Okay, Bob's like, oh, what's this?
Yeah. I just stumbled upon this. Doesn't feel eerie at all.
Nothing wrong with this place.
So when he reopened it,
To
he had...
ABC Cigars.
That would be hysterical.
Wouldn't that be good?
What a good nod. Oh, it'd be ABC Cigar.
ABC Cigars. That's really good. Listen. He had a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, well, I think he was running with the first thing he saw and didn't even think about the creativity. So he reopens it in the 80s, and he also brought the building back to its original 1920s aesthetic, so it looks like it did when the Capones owned it.
Cool.
It was cool. I'm down
Yeah.
with that. Fun fact, apparently it's not really a fun fact, but early in the 90s, Bob claims that this was a regular hotspot or watering hole for Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I mean, it is a fun fact in our universe. Like, it's our type of fun fact that's just fucked up. That's upsetting.
Yes. Well, in case you wanted to know that, now you do.
I didn't, but thank you for telling me anyway.
You're welcome. So during renovations, of course, ghosts hate renovations, it seems, and contractors started having very spooky experiences. And by the second day of this building being open, Bob knew it was haunted.
Oh no, that's pretty quick.
That's rough. I'd be like, ooh, how much did I invest into this fucking place?
Yeah.
Staff had issues right away, and soon, because people were having so many paranormal experiences, Bob just started giving informal tours of the building.
Okay.
Which, like, if you find a side hustle, lean into it,
Why
I guess.
not? You know, I would take him up on that.
Yeah. If he was like, oh, you want to see, like, the place and maybe have a spooky experience? Let's
Hell
go.
yeah.
He also started very quickly looking into the potential entities here. He knew, about Molly and Elizabeth, who both died on the property. Elizabeth, she's a hoot. The little 8-year-old girl. She loves her some mischief.
Aww.
And it's fun for her, and it's fun for me not having to experience it. But if I were someone who had to experience it, I'd hate it. Because she's most often seen or recognized in the women's bathroom, which is like on its own a sad thing, because it's like she just wants to hang out with the girlies.
Oh, yeah, she's like, this is where the girls go.
Yeah. So in the bathroom, the faucets turn on by themselves. Women hear giggling in the bathroom. Apparently, they'll hear knocking, of course, on their stall.
Oh, no. You're like, I'm really indecent right now.
Truly, pants dropped, maybe in the middle of an intense situation.
But that is such a kid thing to do. Mom!
Yeah.
I just
What are
imagine.
you doing? What are you doing?
Can I come in?
Well, if you don't lock the stall door, guess who kicks it open?
Shut up. It just swings open and there's like nobody on the... That's terrifying.
And then some people, even worse, is if you're walking by the stalls to like see which ones are available, sometimes people will see the shoes of a little... they'll see a little girl standing.
I just got goose cam. That's scary.
Imagine if you see the shoes when you're on the other side on the potty and she's trying to bang on the door and giggle, and you see little vintage feet and shoes.
Or what if she's like just silent and you just see like Victorian shoes? You're like, oh my God, what do I do?
For the rest of the time, if I ever see shoes on the other side of a stall, I'm just going to assume that it's a ghost for sure.
It's going to be
no
like
context.
Skechers shape ups, and you're going to be like, oh my God, it's a Victorian ghost.
They're going to be shoes that like light up, like the little kid light up shoes. It's like, that's a
Get
demon
away!
for sure.
You're going to start saying the Our Father, and then the parents are going to be like, okay, we're going to find a different bathroom. This one's really weird.
Imagine if they're Heelys.
I am imagining.
So, yeah, apparently she just likes to chill in the bathroom. Also, she has a portrait of herself in Shakers. They've like, I
Aw.
don't know if it's a painted portrait or what. There's a picture of her to honor her at Shakers next to the bathroom where everyone sees her.
Okay.
And apparently the portrait moves on its own throughout the building and people just find the portrait in
Oh.
different rooms.
Oh my god, that feels like a big heavy item to be moving around.
It brings up this stupid
That thing, that quandary.
the quandary. Like, is it falling into a portal and just showing up somewhere? Is it being moved and no one's how would you not notice
Is
a
it
portrait
getting like
moving by
floated through the hallway, or is it just like poof in it?
No. If you're on a Heely that's
Oh, that's
sliding.
slide. You're right. It would glide. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
If you just see it gliding away, you
Stupid
know a little kid in
Christine.
Heelys is doing it. In 2001, during renovations, human remains were found in the upstairs walls, which is
Oh my god.
where the brothel was.
Shit.
Forensics say that the charred bones were 70 years old and they're believed to have belonged to a teenage woman or a younger
Oh,
woman.
sad.
They could belong to anyone, but it's suspected to be the remains of Molly Brennan, who died.
Okay, sure, that makes sense.
And the basement here in the bar used to be a meetup spot or a hideout for the Capone brothers with like all their mob wheelings and dealings.
Mm-hmm.
And during the renovations, Bob had the construction crew use radar down there on the ground, and they found 2 bodies buried under the concrete.
Oh no.
Is that not the most like quintessential mob thing you've ever heard? That they
Literally.
just bury you in concrete?
I love that Bob was the exact right person. I like made fun of him at first, but he's like on it.
He's like, I know something fucking happened
yeah,
here.
he's like, we're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Or also like, I wonder what his involvement was. I like to think if I found remains in a wall, we're checking every fucking wall now.
Every wall.
But I wonder if like the police got involved or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be like a historical issue. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Right. So they found 2 bodies in the basement under concrete, and the police said that the burial was so old that digging it up felt unnecessary.
Wow.
And so Bob just never recovered the bodies, so they're still
just
down
down
there.
there. Oh, that's dark.
But to mark the spot, he put 2 plastic Halloween skeletons where they are.
Okay.
So you know where the bodies are buried, which I feel like an X
I was
on
gonna
the
say,
ground.
there's a couple other ways you could mark without,
Honestly, you're a fucking cigar bar. You don't want to just put a table down there with 2 cigars for them?
That's a great idea, Em.
Just leave a cup of whiskey and just never touch it?
Yeah, just let them have, yeah. The Halloween props are a little but.
Except for Halloween. I'm telling you, if I end up being like wherever I end up, if someone would like to put a skeleton there to honor me, go for it.
Yeah,
And make the skeleton do funny things.
We're definitely the exception. We'd be like, let's become a sideshow the second we die.
I would like my grave to be a sideshow one day.
Absolutely. And I'm going to fulfill that wish if you die before me.
I hope so. But so yeah, he marked the spot at least so people know where they are, and it's right in the corner of the basement, so it's not like it's 2 big skeleton props that are like you have to trip over every day.
Right.
They're in the corner. So anyway, so this makes 3 confirmed deaths and 3 bodies remains in Shakers.
I was going to say, it's not even like, oh, people died. It's like their bodies are here.
Yeah.
That's so disturbing.
So now for the ghosts, Molly, she is known to haunt the 3rd floor, especially the penthouse where she worked. And it's now a hotel, by the way. The upstairs part is a hotel room. And so guests actually have to sign a waiver just in case they have a haunting that they're not going to sue the
I was going to ask
building.
you if you would stay there. I feel like that's almost too on the, like, I would usually stay in any haunted place, but that feels a little.
I think I would be, well, it depends on, assuming the ghosts were just sex workers and people from before there was ever a building there, yeah, I would. But if the spirits are like mobsters,
I think I don't want to be part of that.
I don't want to like be harmed. But I feel like if I were like in a room where like sex work happened, I would just go in and be like super respectful and be like, I'm not here to You want to just like hang out and watch TV or something? That's chill.
Let's
But
watch
like,
TV.
we're not going any further than that. So
That's
you
fair.
are welcome to feel safe here, and I want to feel safe here. So, but if it was like someone who wants to apparently throw me into a wall, like, no, I don't want to
To
be in a
bury you
place
under the
like that.
concrete.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So people also, I guess, because of all the dark stuff that happened there, people will hear crying on the third floor.
Oh.
Plus the TVs and the lights turn on and off by themselves. On the TV, the channels and the volume will change on their own. People have been grabbed there, especially when they're sleeping.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm saying I don't know about this.
But also I wonder if that's like in a dangerous way being grabbed, or if it's like in a sex worker way
But
they
here's the
thought you're
thing.
supposed to approach.
But here's the thing, I don't care. If someone
okay.
grabs me in my sleep, I'm like threatened.
That's a good point.
No matter what the intention is, I'm like, who grabbed me in my sleep?
That's a fair point. I wonder, in my mind, I just feel like if I go into a room and I like state my boundaries first,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm probably safer. And I feel like if I knew, again, what ghost was there, if I was getting grabbed and I knew there was at least like
Yeah, that's
no
fair.
threat, I would be more inclined to be okay with sleeping
That's fair.
there.
That makes sense.
Because I'd be like, no, we don't do that. We just don't do that. So people get grabbed, especially in their sleep, which I wonder, whenever a place was formerly a brothel, I wonder what the stats are of like how often men are being touched compared to women.
Yeah. Interesting.
I've heard other places where like, oh, the men especially, like someone's gonna rub your back, someone's gonna try to touch your hair,
Yeah.
and you're gonna smell perfume. So I would be interested about that.
Me
but
too.
People also hear speaking, but usually out of context, they'll just hear like a random phrase.
I like that. That's my kind of haunting, where you're like, ooh, what does it mean?
What's the drama, girl?
What's the
Spill.
drama?
Yeah. But they'll just hear like either mumbling or voices as if they're picking up on old conversation. People will see shadow figures, and guests will have their items moved, especially like odds and ends like jewelry. Shoes apparently especially move on their own and then reappear in odd places.
Well, they are Heelys, so they will roll. You have to be careful.
If someone can go to that bar and leave one light up shoe, one Heely, one wedge, and one
wedge.
I'm trying to think like, and then like a random boring one.
Yeah. Just a flat.
I would love to see which one gets moved first on its own, like as a test. You know,
yeah.
What's your favorite shoe? And
if
then
it's
just
not
like
the Heely, I'm gonna be really upset.
it would have to be a Heely, especially if a little 8-year-old girl haunts that place.
Yeah.
Or like a tap shoe, because you can make noise with it.
Oh no, that's all we need. The ghost with tap shoes.
And you know what the sick part is? That 8-year-old ghost would never let that shoe reappear. You would just hear it tapping for the rest of time.
Sorry,
yeah.
it's mine now.
Items can be knocked off dressers and tables if they're not just moving or disappearing on their own. Activity has been so high in the past that people leave in the middle of the night, and things allegedly don't get too wild until 3 a.m. So you're good until 2:59, folks. Apparently less people have been fleeing in the night because the bar/hotel has been getting more experienced investigators recently. So instead of people running, there's now more people leaning into this.
I see.
And they've realized the most active spot is the basement, where there is a very deep cistern, which I hadn't even mentioned yet.
Oh.
Or a well, essentially. It's in the basement, and the theory is that the Capones used to throw bodies down there.
Oh, shit.
Which is wild. Like, did you throw them down, or did you bury them in concrete, or did you do both?
I was gonna say, maybe they just ran out of room, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, otherwise I'm like, how do you decide? And like, which one's worse?
Maybe they both had their own method, you know? Like each of them.
Yeah, I would think if you're running a mob-owned speakeasy and you have a well, nothing good has ever come out of that well.
What do we think is happening in that well, you know? Clean
what do we
water?
think, or what do we
Hell
know?
No. What do we know?
So about this well, the well is now covered with a grate that has metal bars so that nobody else can accidentally be thrown down there. But it used to be fully covered, so it wasn't a grate that you could see through. It was just a slab.
Yeah.
But apparently when that was around, the basement ghosts got so aggressive.
Why?
which is so weird because I don't understand.
Is it
But
like they're like trapped down there now?
so that's what they think, that the
Oh.
spirits felt trapped, like they'd never be found again, or they couldn't see the world again.
Oh, and that is kind of ominous to put a big slab over. Yeah.
So anyway, the staff changed the solid grate to one with bars, and activity did die down, which is
Okay.
weird.
That
How they
is-
even I wouldn't have even have put those two things together, that it was associated with the grate.
Yeah.
Um, so in the early 2000s, one of the servers was dating a guy who claimed to be very spiritually sensitive, and he said that in the basement he felt an entity named O'Connor.
Oh.
And ever since then, I guess this guy's been called O'Connor, whether or not that's his name. So, fun fact, the basement is known to be where most tour guides that are women get assaulted, presumably by O'Connor, but also this is again where we're talking about maybe these are ghosts from the brothel time, or
Sure.
from the speakeasy time. So, but women sure do get assaulted down there.
They sure do.
Sure do. O'Connor is I think just the name they slap onto this entity now.
Okay.
And he is known to pull women's hair. He is known to slap their butts, grab their butts,
Oh,
be very
no.
hostile towards women. On one tour, there was a woman who was the tour guide. She called O'Connor a lazy Irish bastard, which, not to victim blame here, but what were you thinking? And
What
then
do you
immediately
think
she
is
gets
gonna happen?
forcefully pushed into a wall.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like she told someone to record before she said that. Just so
I
they could
hope
get
so,
it
for
on
content.
camera. Yeah.
Like, girl, you work here. You know better than that. So this entity is very hostile towards women, especially blondes and redheads.
Okay.
He's also very active during investigations and is very quick to react and communicate with equipment. He's said to have been seen before, and when he has been seen, he is in Confederate regalia. So
Oh, excellent.
just to add to the charm.
Winner.
They think he might be an Irish immigrant who fought in the Civil War. And this is super weird. He was also seen on an infrared camera standing in the basement in the corner where the two bodies are buried.
He's like, I did this.
Yeah, right?
I wonder if he's like, these are my.
Or I wonder if it's or he's one of the bodies.
Or it's one of the bodies, right? True. Wait, that's a great point.
Which makes me wonder why the other one isn't showing up. Like, did he do something to the other ghost? If
Maybe
both
the
of
other
them are
one has
buried?
moved on.
The basement also has very nasty, dark vibes if you're a cop. I guess probably because of the mobster spirits hated.
Oh, true.
Cops.
They can smell it on you.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? So many places where if you're an officer and the place used to be a place that would get busted.
Yep.
Those ghosts fucking hate you.
Yeah,
and
you're screwed. They can send it doesn't even matter if you're off duty. They can smell it on you.
And then I get confused too, because why are there mobsters that are haunting this place? Wouldn't it be the bodies that the mobsters killed here?
Well, I bet you they're sometimes one and the same, right? Like they killed each other.
That's a great point. Didn't even think about that. So yeah, then no, I don't think I would stay here if there's clearly aggressive people. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
You are a cop, so.
Ain't that the truth? If I'm a cop, it's like a Paw Patrol cop.
I was gonna say the world will probably fall into a million pieces, but anyway.
So apparently people who have to deliver beer to the bar, they sometimes have to go down to the basement alone to
They better get the king's treatment, okay? Because they're delivering beer to the former Speakeasy.
Well, so a lot of them apparently feel such dread in that basement that they will drop it off, not unload anything. They'll just leave their own equipment and fucking leave. They'll run.
What? Oh no, I thought they'd get the special treatment.
You would think, but also if you work there and you know how scary it is, maybe I wonder whose job it actually is to unload the beer in the basement, or if everyone's just pulling short straws of hopefully they do it. Hopefully a new person comes and unloads beer because they won't know and we don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, we'll send them down.
It almost feels like if the basement is this sinister, just find storage on the second
beer
floor.
somewhere else.
I had one friend growing up and her basement was so haunted.
Uh-oh.
She refused to go in that basement. I'd been in her house a million times in my life, and she was like, I'll never go down there.
And Em was like, no, let's just go down real quick. Let's just
Yeah, I was.
You know
but she
Em
was she was like scared, and I was like, oh, if you live here and you don't even want to do it,
Then
I'm
like
not gonna
I
do
get
it.
the message. Yeah.
Excuse me. Yawn break. So in the basement, there's a door leading to the storage room in the basement.
Okay.
The door down there will knock on its own and shake violently, and it gives off the illusion that it looks like someone is trapped down there.
Ew, I don't like that.
Plus, the door's latch is bent outward as if someone on the other side is pushing to force themselves out.
Ew.
So this door is being shaken so violently that it's breaking. That's, I mean, wild. And there's nothing in there. They'll open the door, no one's in there.
That's freaky.
Here's one. I was trying to figure out, I leave an acronym every now and then in front of my notes.
Yeah, I know that about you.
Like FF means fun fact.
Yeah.
I didn't know what this one meant, AHH, but it's actually just ah.
Oh.
So
I was like, American Horror Story? Oh, okay. It's just screaming.
it's just for me to tell you, oh, this is a scary one.
I got the
one of the
message, by
tour
the way.
guides there, his name's David, and he had to go down to the basement, and he saw a 400-pound safe down there that had moved itself to the middle of the room,
Ew!
facing the staircase.
Ah! I get the AHH now.
Well, you'll really get it now, because he sees the safe had moved on its own. 400 pounds is now facing the staircase. As he's looking at it, he gets an out-of-body experience.
What?
While standing there staring at the safe, he realizes that he is now on the other side of the room looking at himself, staring at the safe. As he's watching himself from the other side of the basement, whatever body he must be taking over to be looking at himself or whatever is happening, he then realizes that in this point of view where he's looking at himself staring at the safe, he, without being able to control himself, starts sprinting at his own body.
Oh my god! This is so scary.
So whatever took him over started running at him.
That's horrifying.
And he could see it from this thing's perspective. He suddenly snaps out of it as this thing's sprinting at him that he can't see in real time. And he runs up the stairs before he can find out what it was that was charging him.
I would never go back down there. Forget it.
So, like, so was that thing, I mean, it must have intentionally taken him over just to freak him out? Or, like, they tapped into one another? That's so weird. I wonder,
my feeling is like, there was probably an entity down there messing with the safe, whatever, and then he walked in and somehow his consciousness, they
Bluetoothed with each other.
Yeah, Bluetooth connection.
Or it was really intentionally sinister.
Or
Either
that,
way.
or that.
I like the idea of like Bluetooth and Heelys. So guests have experienced a lot here, but the scariest thing is that just people in general feel in danger when they're here. Many people have left because of this, and that's both in the basement and I guess in their own rooms at night. But like I said, more people are coming knowing what's to happen because they know that it's haunted.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think the only people who are willing to stay are either people who have no idea or someone who has every idea, right? So
Right.
Shaker's is listed among America's most haunted bars with nearly 10,000 people a year coming on their ghost tours.
Whoa, that's a lot.
And there's seemingly ghost encounters happening nonstop here. So if you are in Milwaukee and you need a spooky time, Shaker's Cigar Bar. I'd like to think that during Halloween they like really amp it up, you know?
I mean, he has those two skeletons. You know he bought more at the Halloween store when he bought those.
I wonder if he's upgraded from like the $10 plastic spirit Halloween ones to like yeah, something like a cast iron skeleton or something cool.
Oh Lord, he's got them custom made.
I know. Anyway, sounds like a good place if you want to be haunted. I mean,
you know,
everyone's got a thing that happens to them there. So
I would go there with you, Em.
I'd go there with you, and I
should
would
go.
leave there with you too.
And I would leave there without you. No offense.
Either way, I'm leaving. Yeah.
That sounds like a delight. I would go. Let's go. When do we get to go to Milwaukee next? No clue, but I want to be there. So
Okay.
we can try it. It's like an 8-hour drive from my house, so we could go.
Cash. It's like an
Just
8-hour
cash.
flight to you, and then an 8-hour drive
It's
there.
just easy.
We could be there in a day.
We
That's
could
what
be
I'm
there
hearing.
in 16 hours.
I'm right now. I'm in Virginia, so it would just be 8 hours for both
flight.
of us.
Yeah.
We could be there by dinner.
What if you showed up at my door? So what if right now we decided to hang out tonight? Wouldn't that be wild?
I know what you're doing.
Also, it would be so stupid because I literally am like checking in for my flight today. So.
I literally got on Google Maps just in case for fun. But you're
far
right.
is
You are leaving. Hang on. Let me type in
if
your
I were
address.
not
and see
leaving,
how
I
far
would
we are.
absolutely drag you over here today.
Hang on. I'm typing in your address to see how far of a drive you are from my house to your house. We are 383 miles from each other, or 8 hours and 25 minutes.
That's doable in a day.
That's a road trip. As far
It's
as
an
I'm
easy road
concerned.
trip, you know? Well,
Okay.
just saying. You want to help me pack?
If I didn't have to round trip make it a 17-hour situation.
Fair point.
Yes.
Fair point. You could Healy back. That probably would be faster. You could Healy down the freeway.
Can you imagine me just holding onto the back of someone's truck in
I
my Heelys?
absolutely can. That's the
Me
worst
too.
part.
I literally have Heelys.
I know you do. I thought that, and then I was like, maybe I invented that. But no, you do.
I'm not athletic or coordinated at anything, but I actually am a pretty fucking good Heelier.
Well, yeah, and you're good at segueing. I can't segue. So, like, you're clearly...
I've got a balance
your
situation going on.
Yes,
And
you're good at balance. Have you ever paddleboarded?
Yes, and I did not fall, but my legs actually, whatever muscles you use to paddleboard, were atrophied. And like my legs were like shaking.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I figured it out.
I
but-
paddleboarded for 0.03 seconds because I stood up and I didn't even stand up before I was already falling. So that's how my balance. But to be fair, it was in the ocean, so it was like
that's
really
that's a rough
crazy.
one.
But
yeah,
I don't
I've only
think
done
I
it in
could-
a river.
I don't think I could do it and like anywhere. I have no balance. So
I did it with my mom for Mother's Day one time, and she picked the day that we had a severe tornado watch.
oh my lord!
And so as we were out there, the view was
You're like,
incredible,
I'm not
but
sure
it
why
looked
I was
like
shaking. I'm like, yeah, because a tornado was probably coming your way.
it looked like an apocalypse. And halfway through, we ended up having to stop because like the storm was very much coming in.
I don't know what your weather's like, and I know you're in a basement, so you probably can't see. But are you in a basement? Or no, you're just in your closet.
I used to be in a basement when I came here, and now I have upgraded to the guest room.
Oh, quit bragging. That's Elisa Lampanelli. She says it all the time. She's always like, quit bragging when it's like something like really unpleasant.
She said that to me when I told her I had a headache.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. It's a great line. But I don't know if you can see, but at least I know we're like 300 miles apart, but now in my head we're neighbors. But there's like definitely a storm brewing out here. I'm looking outside and it is ominous. So
I wonder if she flew over to you because last night we had a storm.
Oh, probably.
By the way, seeing rain and as a West Coaster, I cried a little bit.
I was going to say, I always tell you when it's storming here, so you can kind of get usually you're just mad that I told you, but
I love a storm.
I know. So I was hoping maybe you got the same experience. Yeah, it looks creepy, and it's perfect because I have a creepy story for you, Em.
Nice segue there.
Thank you. You know, you're the
Segue.
segue master, but every now and then I can get a Segue in there. So this is the story of Sherri Papini.
Okay.
Do you know this one at all?
But a fun name.
Yeah, Blaze was like, oh, I know the story. And I was like, what?
Oh, I love when he just delivers out of nowhere.
I just never know what to do. I'm like, okay, fine.
Have you talked to Fake Blaze about it? Maybe he can do something.
You know what? I've ignored him pretty extensively for most of our relationship, but maybe now.
I thought you were going to say, like, no, because I don't have the first signs of severe mental illness.
Oh, I have. Well, sure. Let's go with that. Wink. Okay, this is the story of Sherri Papini. And it is a doozy. So let's start from the beginning. Keith and Sherri Papini, they were childhood friends. They actually had their first kiss in the 7th grade together, and they would write notes to each other in middle school, and he actually kept them all the way till he was a grown up. And why did I say it like that? He was a grown up.
Until he was a grown up.
What's wrong with me? Okay. When they reconnected as adults, Keith dug out the box of old notes and said, "Look, Sherri, what I still have from like decades ago in middle school." And they fell for each other after years apart.
How could you not? I would melt.
You would be done. Like it would
I'd be like, please.
If anyone needs like a formula, that's it, to get M on board.
Just keep all of your garbage until something that associates back to me.
I do keep all of my garbage. So one day when we reconnect in the nursing home, I will win your heart. I know it.
Thank you.
So Sherri's sister Sheila said that Keith and Sherri did these sort of like cutesy things. I mean, God, this is like M's dream for each other that you'd like see on TV or read in a novel, like leave little notes and all that. And they had like kind of what people called a fairy tale romance, and got married in 2009. So they moved into the house that Keith had grown up in, his childhood home in Redding, California, which is in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains, and they had 2 children. They had a son named Tyler and a daughter named Violet. So Sherri was a very active stay-at-home mom. She was doting. She was very involved, always coming up with like activities and, taking the kids everywhere to their extracurriculars. And Keith worked as an audio video specialist at Best Buy. Mm-hmm. So people considered Sherri a super mom and a super wife. She had the energy to do everything. She woke up at 6 a.m. and like filled the kids' days with activities. She meal prepped, she cleaned, she ran errands, she baked, she cooked food. She was like the quintessential like mom figure, super mom. Mm-hmm. So Keith was also a super husband. Sheila said everyone could only hope that their loved ones could find a husband as loving and dedicated as Keith. He came home from work and, the kids ran to him and he took over while Sherri made dinner. They just had a very good, balanced relationship. So on November 2nd, 2016, Keith was leaving for work at 6:50 a.m. and Sherri went to go check on Violet. He gave his wife a kiss and a hug and left for work. But when Keith got home that afternoon, things felt off. Uh-oh. So usually when he opened the door, both kids, who were like 4 and 2, I believe, would run to the door to greet their dad when he got home. And Keith called it their family snuggles. And they did this every day after work. But when he opened the door, the house was silent.
Ugh.
So he started looking around for his family inside, in the yard, but there was no sign of them anywhere. And he wasn't quite panicked yet. He and Sherri had Find My Friends on, so he was able to check Sherri's location. And according to the app, she was at their mailbox. Now, their mailbox was kind of farther down the road from their home, like a mile away. So it's not like you can just glance out the window and see the mailbox. It's further down. They're kind of in like a rural area. So Keith assumed like, okay, well, they must have gone on a walk and she took the kids with her. And so he hopped back into the car and went to go check. She was not there, which was odd. And her car was still in the driveway, by the way. So he was like, okay, she's not driving with the kids anywhere. So he thought, hopped in her car, went to check if they were on a walk. They were not there. Very, very odd. Mm-hmm. So Keith called his mom, who hadn't heard from her either, and he started to get more and more worried. He called his kids' daycare and said, "Hey, I'm wondering what time Sherri picked the kids up." And the person on the other end was confused and said, "Sherri never picked the kids up. They are still here." And so now he's really freaked out. This is not something that has ever happened. She's never left the kids at daycare. And in that moment, Keith was like, something bad has happened.
Yeah.
So he starts looking for Sherri's phone because he has the app and it says it's right here. And he finds Sherri's phone lying on the side of the road near the mailbox. I mean,
oh my God.
That's when my blood runs cold.
Oh my God.
The headphones were still plugged into it.
Oh, God. Well, that tells you everything you need.
Yeah, and there was some blood on the cord of the headphones and some pieces of Sherri's hair tangled in the headphones.
Oh, God.
Yeah, disturbing.
Mm.
So Keith now is in a full panic. He calls 911. He insists something is wrong. And he later told interviewers, I knew she was taken. So she had been training for a 5K race. So he suspected, based on the phone's location and the headphones, that she had been kidnapped while she was jogging. Now, this is like a kind of irrelevant but fun fact for you. Apparently, she was really into Michael Bublé, and their wedding song was, oh my gosh, I forget.
Was it Everything?
I think that's it. Yes.
Oh, that's my favorite song of his.
Everything. And so she always played it to run to. And when he picked up the phone, that song was still playing and it was on a loop, like on repeat.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
Isn't that disturbing?
Oh my God.
That detail like really got me. I think it is everything. I don't want to. Yeah, I think it is everything. And so like very, very alarming. Clearly it looked like she had been kidnapped while she was out for a jog because he knew she was training for a 5K. And so I kind of love this fact about him. He actually took photos of the phone on the ground before touching it.
So smart.
Which I was like, that's fucking genius. Like you see so many stories where it's just like, they messed up, because of course, because you're in a panic. But like the fact that he had the wherewithal to do that, I kind of love. So Keith now calls Sherri's sister Sheila, and Sheila remembers falling to the ground and crying, then telling her husband Sherri had been abducted, and she was just in a panic. She was like, I don't know if I'll ever see my little sister again. Everyone is getting really worked up. So police contacts Sherri's friends and family. They're trying to piece together clues about her day before she vanished. They checked neighborhood surveillance cameras. They checked in motels. They checked hospitals in case maybe like she had gotten injured. They contacted her ex who lived out of state, but he hadn't heard from her in over 6 years. And so any type of tip that is coming in, they're following, but the tips lead nowhere. So Keith, like just not knowing what else to do, reaches out to the mayor, and he was able to speak at a city council meeting to ask the community for help. And it didn't occur to Keith right away that he would be the prime suspect because, the husband did it is usually the refrain. And police were thinking, he took photos of the phone on the ground, and that was just, it seemed like too on the nose for being a good witness or being a good part of the investigation. They were like, this seems a little staged. Like it seems, maybe he killed her while the kids were at school and then faked an abduction.
Right.
So that's what they're thinking. So they start questioning Keith about some arrangements he and Sherri had over text before she went missing. So Keith had said when Sherri got angry at him, she regularly sent angry texts and threatened to take the kids and leave. He said he hated confrontation, so Sherri would always up the ante in the arguments to like get to him by like just escalating until
try
he
to
reacted.
Like egg him on to have a reaction. Yeah,
exactly. He said he knew their arguments would look surprisingly aggressive via text from the outside, but he was like, I swear I had nothing to do with this. And even Sherri's family said they didn't consider Keith had done something for a second. They were that confident in their relationship, and they thought there's no way Keith could be involved in this.
Well, also, like, if his alibi, or like, if he killed her, and the narrative looked like, oh, well, they had a tumultuous relationship and they were sending angry, threatening texts to each other, why would he plant a phone that looked like it was on loop of their wedding song?
True.
Wouldn't it be a song like, I hate my husband?
Well, wouldn't it not be that? Wait. Because wouldn't he want it to look like they had no drama?
I guess so, yeah. But I don't know. I feel like when you then also, like, while you're at it, delete her text, that make it look really bad for you.
Yes, I feel like that's a fair point. Yes, if you were going to do it properly, quote unquote, which is the worst word to use in this scenario, probably you would. And so But yeah, so Sherri's family's like, there's no way it's Keith. Like he loves her, he cares for her, he's a great dad and a great husband. So Keith volunteered to take a polygraph test, and he surrendered his phone, his computer records, was like very, what's the word?
Cooperative.
Cooperative, thank you. And he passed the polygraph and handed everything over, so he's not looking very guilty. But in the meantime, while this is all going on, Sherri's disappearance has become breaking international news.
International? Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably just like, oh, a pretty blonde mom of two gets abducted from the side of the road in like a nice neighborhood. You know, it just has all the trappings of like easily consumable crime media. And so at this point, investigators still aren't like, there's no concrete proof that she was abducted, but her kidnapping, quote unquote, was all over social media. So whether they had announced that it was officially a kidnapping or not, that's kind of what everybody went with online. Oh, here we go. This is actually the quote I was probably really poorly butchering. This is the host of a show on Oxygen named Abby Schreiber, and she said, Sherri fit the profile of who the media and the public often care about when it comes to missing people. She was white, she was blonde, she seemed to have this perfect life, the perfect marriage, perfect children, and then like the unthinkable happened. So that's why it became such a media sensation. Speaking of which, the FBI got involved immediately, which I was kind of surprised by. Yeah. And within hours of Keith's 911 call, police launched a massive search effort with officers and volunteers. People were scouring the woods, the creeks, the back roads, the ditches. No stone went unturned, but there was no sign of Sherri whatsoever. They were putting up missing posters all around town. There were even billboards, and locals started tying yellow ribbons around the trees, like, you know, to come home, like safe return, come home. And the Papinis were themselves pretty private people. They didn't really use social media, but Keith kind of went out of his comfort zone and started appearing on TV to try and bring awareness to the case and keep the case in people's minds. You know, he would say, I'll do anything to bring her home. Please bring her home. And their son, Tyler, at this point was only 4 and Violet was 2. And the Papini's friends and family cared for the kids around the clock, but poor little 4-year-old Tyler could tell something was wrong. And one day, Tyler asked about his mom, and he told Keith, Dad, you can tell me anything. He's 4. I know, it breaks my heart. So Keith told his son that Sherri went outside, and they didn't know where she was. Tyler asked if they were looking for her. Keith said that the whole world was looking for her, and they were going to find her and bring her home. So Keith's mind at this point is racing. He wonders if whoever took Sherri was feeding her, like if she's still alive, you know. Right, I mean, there's just a million questions. He said he wondered if she was too hot or too cold, which like makes me cry. And meanwhile, police weren't calling it an abduction yet because officially there was no evidence beyond the phone on the side of the road, but Sherri's family knew someone had taken her. So
I mean, I guess that makes me Sherri's family because it's obviously an abduction. Like, it's like there's blood and hair on it, and like it got yanked out of her head.
Yeah, and there's no sign of her. So search efforts started to kind of wane, but Sherri's and Keith's family kept looking. Keith was desperate enough that he started considering psychics. And one day he saw birds circling overhead. This is like where you realize like how dark it must be to be in this position. He saw birds circling and he realized like, oh, maybe they're birds of prey and there's a body that they're above. So that's where his mind is. He's just like in constant panic mode. And it's getting difficult at this point for him to hold on to hope, but he keeps pushing. The Papinis launch a GoFundMe account and raised just about $50,000 to fund greater search efforts. And then something like there was a weird twist in this story that like I was not expecting when an anonymous donor for the GoFundMe suggested that the Papinis offer a ransom to Sherri's abductors for her safe return. Now, this is like apparently this businessman who was anonymous. He was like traveling through the area when he saw Keith on TV, and he was like so moved by the story that he offered what they called for like the opposite of a ransom, like a backwards ransom where like they would pay the criminals to bring her back.
Okay.
Like they offer the ransom rather than
Is there a word for that?
no, they said something. I'm trying to remember. I listened to a case file episode on this the other day. And a reverse ransom is what they called it.
Oh,
But this is
okay.
like not a thing. It's like just something this guy kind of came up with. And it was a little odd because he's just this wealthy businessman and he's anonymous. But you know, they went with it and they
I
said,
mean, I would do it too if someone I loved went missing. I'd be like, I will pay you to bring her back. Like, I'll
yeah.
do. Yeah.
But this was like a random dude, like it just
Oh,
in
sorry.
town for work. So it was kind of like, huh, who is this
Yeah.
guy?
Okay.
So this anonymous donor, he suggests the Papinis offer like a reverse ransom to Sherri's abductors for her safe return. And they said the abductors should contact the professional negotiator, whose name was Cameron Gamble. Now, Cameron Gamble was a retired military airman who made his living training soldiers, police officers, and citizens how to avoid being captured and how to escape if they are captured. So they're saying now this money's going to go toward this guy, and he's going to help us find Sherri. So in a 2016 interview, he showed ABC his training warehouse where he built kidnap simulators, which is like my worst nightmare. It's like really intense escape room sort of, but it's like you're being abducted and you're training how to get out of the situation, which is scarier than any haunted house, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So on November 18th, this negotiator posted a video to YouTube stating that he had been contacted by someone regarding Sherri's case who wished to remain anonymous. This is this like businessman. He introduced himself as, quote, an international kidnap and ransom consultant. And he addressed the abductors and said, I don't know your motive, I don't know who you are, and I don't care. We care about getting Sherri back. So now they're roping in these kind of professionals to try and take a new angle at it. On November 23rd, he posted another video. This time he said, the world has been looking for you, Sherri Papini, and now the world is going to be looking for you, whoever you are, to the abductors. He told the abductors that the ransom was no longer an option. So there was actually a 3-day period where the businessman said, if you don't bring her back in 3 days, I'm pulling this. And by the way, the sum, like the ransom, was a mystery 6-figure sum. That's
Okay.
That's all that he said. But after 3 days, when they didn't get Sherri home, this like mystery businessman left town and said that that money was now going toward the reward to the public to find Sherri.
Okay.
He said he wanted to make the reward so tempting that even the abductor's own mother would turn them in.
Holy crap.
So the sheriff and others, the police, and a lot of people in the public were not thrilled with this. They were like, this seems like a publicity stunt. Like, it almost seemed like this hostage negotiator guy was like plugging his own business as part of this shtick. Like, it seemed kind of like a stunt.
It's like a sponsored ransom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the best way to put it. People were like, this is just really weird. But Keith was like, I don't fucking care. Like, I just want to get my wife back. So I give zero shits. So on Thanksgiving Day, it had been 22 days since her disappearance. Keith gets a phone call. It's the police, and they say, we have found Sherri.
Okay. I'm skeptical.
She told the police officers that her abductors had dropped her off in the middle of nowhere on a rural road. She was bound with a chain around her waist. Her left hand was chained inside the vehicle so she couldn't run. Her abductors had put a bag over her head. And at one point, the abductors pulled over, cut her loose, pushed her out of the vehicle, and sped away. So she used her free hand to get the bag off her head, which ended up being a pillowcase, and take in her surroundings. She had no idea where she was, so she ran to the closest house, but nobody answered. So she tried a nearby building, which was locked and empty. Finally, she ran toward the interstate, and she started to wave the pillowcase around to flag down a driver.
Yeah.
Turns out Sherri was in Yolo County, California, which was 150 miles from her home. And most people just drove past while she kind of screamed on the side of the road for help.
Sure. Yeah.
She was like, maybe having chains on me made me look like I had escaped from prison, or I don't know. She wasn't sure. So she tried to kind of hide the chains, and she's waving this pillowcase around. Finally, several people stopped to help Sherri, and somebody called 911, and they all described her as frantic. So then, yeah, exactly. The 911 operator asked to speak to Sherri, and on the phone, she sounded desperate. She cried and begged for the operator to call her husband. She's hyperventilating. Authorities told each other over the radio that they were responding to an unknown medical problem and described Sherri as heavily battered and said she was the victim of some sort of an assault. So finally, they get to Sherri. She's, back in safety, and they're asking questions, and Sherri says her abductor, they're asking who did this to you, who took you, and she tells officers that her abductors were 2 Hispanic women in a dark SUV. Officers said that in California, that's a very extremely common profile, 2 Hispanic women. So Sherri says the abductors were always wearing bandanas that covered everything but their eyes. So she could not tell what they really looked like, except that she heard them speaking Spanish often, and she did not speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. She could only say that one of them had dark curly hair and that the younger one had dark straight hair, and she believed they were sisters. They held her at gunpoint, forced her into their vehicle, and I guess she said that she tossed her phone at the last second as like a clue to anyone looking for her.
Smart.
Yeah. With such a broad description, many Hispanic Latina women feared being profiled and blamed for this crime, as like people were out on a hunt for these, people. So of course now there were like warnings to people in the area, like if you fit this profile at all, don't leave in pairs because like you'll stand out, like, try to stay indoors, stay out of sight, which is really sad. And so once Sherri was safe in a hospital, authorities called Keith. And when he picked it up, there was an officer on the line telling him to remain calm. But he heard Sherri in the background screaming Keith's name. So he was like, holy shit, she's here and she's alive. Keith talked to Sherri very briefly, then said, I'm coming, and sped to the hospital to see her. She was extremely emotional. She wouldn't answer any questions until she saw Keith. And she just kept telling police, I want to see someone I know and trust. So an officer walked Keith to Sherri's room and told him to prepare himself and remain calm because of Sherri's shocking physical state. So Sherri's face was covered in deep, violent bruises. Her long hair had been cut off, just like kind of hacked off. She said her abductors had starved her, and she had weighed 105 pounds. She's 5'3", and now she only weighed 87. So she had lost,
oh my God,
a lot of weight.
How long was she gone again?
22 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
After 22 days, I would have assumed they were dead.
Oh, for sure. I feel like it's shocking to me that they found her alive.
Oh my God, I know.
And so what's more is that the abductors had branded her shoulder with some letters, and apparently it was the word Exodus, which she described as a disturbing Bible passage. She also had burn marks on her arm.
Was this like some sort of like initiation, like a cult thing, or like a...
So the assumption immediately was human trafficking.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was one of the theories when she was missing, that maybe she had been taken. And, usually human trafficking victims are much younger, but since she was so small and slim, like, maybe from the back she looked younger than she was. Some of her friends said she could probably pass for 18, even though she was like 30 something. So maybe it was a mistake and they thought she was younger than she was, but that was the running theory at this point. So Keith took Sherri in his arms and held her. She cried and said, I thought I was never going to see you again. And in her interview with Keith by her side, she told investigators that her abductors said they were selling her to a buyer who requested that she be branded. So that was the explanation for the brand. And when she was talking to her husband, he was like, you need to tell police what happened. And she said, I can't talk to police because they were part of this. And he's like, what? And she tells her husband, the buyer that was going to buy me was a cop. And he wanted this brand on me. She said that the two women who branded her kept taunting her, telling her that the news said she ran away, that no one was looking for her. She said when she was confronted at gunpoint, she ripped her own hair out and had left it on the side of the road as like a message to Keith.
The two of them really are meant to be together because she left clues and he knew not to do anything but take pictures.
A clue.
Yeah.
Keith said he felt nauseated looking at Sherri, thinking about what she'd been through. She told Keith at one point that she rolled up a piece of cloth and rocked it, pretending it was violet to comfort herself.
God.
It's really dark. In the 2016 ABC special, reporters and a former FBI profiler considered suspects like cults, like you said, local meth dealers, sex offenders. They addressed online rumors that, so people now were starting rumors that this was just a big hoax by either the couple themselves or by this hostage negotiator guy. Like this was some sort of giant, like,
what a funny
plot.
hoax.
What a funny hoax. And if it were a hoax, reporters were like, I don't know, she was pretty brutally assaulted. And it's hard to imagine Keith could have like played along in such a genuine and horrified way, especially like having the two kids at home.
I was going to say involving the children.
Yeah,
oh God.
It's dark. And, you know, that made sense because Keith was not in on it. But it was a hoax.
What? No, it wasn't.
Sherri.
Tell the story again. You didn't do it right.
Sherri had created the entire thing.
She had like some mental health issues or something? What
Let's get
that?
into it. So a year into the investigation, Sherri was giving officers very little information. She acted like she was too deeply traumatized to discuss the details. Meanwhile, at home, Keith said she was jumpy. She got frightened easily by everyday noises. He told interviewers it would take a professional to deal with her PTSD, and he'd be there to support her recovery. But all along, Sherri was putting on an elaborate act that even her own husband didn't realize was phony.
Funky. What a trip. Okay.
What a trip. So soon investigators started questioning parts of Sherri's story that didn't quite make sense. So although both of her abductors were women, forensics only found DNA on her clothes that turned out to match a man.
Oh, no.
Now, this man was not in CODIS. He didn't have a criminal record, so they couldn't match him, and it took years for them to kind of uncover who this guy was. Eventually, through genealogy testing, they were able to figure out who this man was, and his name was James Reyes. And James Reyes was Sherri's ex-boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And
the one who said he hadn't seen her in 6 weeks.
He had not seen her in years. Yeah.
Or 6 years, yeah, okay.
So I don't know if it was the same one. I will say I don't know if it was the same one.
Oh,
but
okay.
This was an ex who said, I have not seen her in years. And they used genetic genealogy. They said, hey, buddy, sorry, we have your DNA. So nice try. They also discovered that Sherri had been in contact with several men in the days before her disappearance, and they were hidden in her phone contacts under women's names. Very suspicious.
Sneaky Sherri.
I know. She had been texting one of the men for 5 years. His name was Donovan, and Donovan said that Sherri often told him Keith was violent and abusive toward her. She said that Keith kept her locked away in her house for weeks. And actually, they had met in Michigan when she was on a work trip 6 years earlier. And they had spent the entire weekend together. And Donovan told police she did not tell me she was married during that time. He thought she was single. So investigators tried to verify these reports with friends and family. Nobody agreed. They were like, fuck no, Keith has never touched her. Sherri was a very independent woman. She did what she wanted. She wasn't locked away ever. Like even her own family was like, no, like this is not real. She was not abused by Keith. She was not locked away by Keith. So investigators start scrutinizing her whole story. And along with that, they start scrutinizing the identities of Sherri's alleged abductors.
Mm-hmm.
So Sherri lived in a primarily white community. And in November 2016, in the midst of the presidential election, remember that?
No, what's that?
Good times. That was when
When are you going to talk about that true crime?
that was the dark days right before we started the podcast, November 2016. So it was the midst of the presidential election, and people in her neighborhood had become very vocally anti-Latino. Then a disturbing blog post came to light. And this was from her high school days. And she published it on a website called skinheads.com.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yes. And she had published it under her maiden name, Sherri Graff. So
wasn't even trying to really hide it.
No, not
right?
even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
Okay.
The title of her blog post was called Being Aware and Having Pride.
Okay.
In this post, the author...
Was homegirl... well, you keep going before I start making wild accusations, but I hear the word pride on a skinhead blog post, and I think I'm in the right direction.
Well, yeah. It's a 1 + 1 equals 2 situation.
Especially when she already claimed that, the bad people here are Latinos that abducted me.
Correct. So in this blog post written by Sherri Graff, the author claimed that in high school, her father had often been bullied by, quote, the Latinos. Allegedly, they hated him and called him a Nazi simply for being of German descent, so he had to stand up for himself against their constant harassment. The author also wrote that she too was frequently suspended for standing up to the Latinos. She wrote, quote, the chief problem was that I was drug-free, white, and proud of my blood and heritage. This really irked a group of Latino girls. Sherri insists that she did not write the blog post. To this day, she says she did not write it. And she said somebody made it up and put her name on it to make her look bad. And she said it gave her a yucky feeling.
Okay.
So they tried to figure out if there was a way to trace who wrote it, but they couldn't.
They couldn't do it through like an IP address or anything?
No, because it had been written it was 2003. And so it was too long ago to be able to trace where it came from. Sherri tried to get it taken down, saying someone was trying to frame her as a racist. But regardless of whether or not she wrote the post, she, like you said, relied on stereotypes of Latino people in her interviews with investigators, despite claiming her abductors wore masks to hide their identities. And remember, these abductors were not real. So, like, at this point...
Right, so she just made everyone a target in town.
She made new characters up, and she told police that one of the women, quote, wore those big hoop earrings, and one of the women had thin, drawn-in eyebrows. She described one of them as having hairy arms, and she described them wearing bandanas. She was basically, like, creating this idea of, like, a quote-unquote threatening Latina woman as, like, a white lady. She's creating this. And one of the things that stuck out to me that they mentioned in the case file episode was that when she was describing how she had been locked away and, you know, all this, she said, and they would play this she said, you know, that really loud, annoying Mexican music. She's talking about mariachi.
Oh my God.
And she said they would just blast that all day long. It's like she's a
and also, you know what's so weird too is the she ends up doing the reverse of what I was talking about earlier with the putting her wedding song on loop to make it look like their relationship was good versus maybe him trying to plant it to make it look like their relationship was good.
Yes. It was sort of like she wanted to be like, it wasn't my husband. I was abducted by these dark-haired strangers.
These people she's trying to get revenge on for being mean to her dad, apparently, or something. So how did she lose all that weight?
She just stopped eating.
She just said for the bit, I'm gonna lose 30 pounds in 30 days.
Well, wait till I tell you how she broke her own nose.
Oh yeah, she was covered in bruises and shit. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Wow.
Remember the brand?
Oh no. Wait, what's the verse? Is the verse something fucking...
So all it said was Exodus, which is like a book of the Bible. So it's not like even a verse. Like I
didn't know if it was like, you know how Deuteronomy is like One of the more
Yeah,
problematic
so
ones. So
it is in the Old Testament. So it is definitely like one of the old-timey creepy ones. Like
I was worried it was like a racist
I mean, it might
verse
be
or
actually.
something.
I don't know. That's a great point. All I know it is in the Old Testament, and it, she kept saying it's a disturbing Bible passage, but I'm like, it's actually an entire book of the Bible. So I don't know, like, if she just didn't know, or if she
Mm.
just knew it was like the Old Testament and had like creepy meaning to it. I don't know. I'm
So,
not.
and on her shoulders. So how did she brand herself?
Oh, I'll tell you. So when police are finally unraveling, like, oh my God, this was all a hoax. And by the way, they'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this case, like trying to find her. And think about like where that money could have gone to actually
Mm-hmm.
helping people who were being trafficked or were being abused, or it just makes me sick. So as they're getting kind of as they're finally able to untangle this, they start hearing from Sherri's family. Sherri's family and friends say, well, Sherri has a history of making things up and running away. And one woman named Asia Coleman told the sheriff that is how she used to deal with things as a child. When things got hard, she would just run away. One friend said she does tend to be a little dramatic, a little exaggerative. And one ex-boyfriend said he broke up with Sherri after 2 years because she kept making up stories for attention. I mean, she made up a lot of
That's
things.
one big honking story.
Yeah, yeah. She actually would create almost different realities for people, like
Like fake Allison.
like oh.
Look, if the farthest my lack of sanity goes is me pretending my girlfriend is next to me, I'm in the clear.
And you're just
But
complimenting her.
I'm just telling her she's beautiful, and I'll catch real Allison up the next day. But like, wow. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so she's got
But
a lot of fake
basically,
realities.
yes, so she presents herself to different people in like very different ways, and not just like, oh, she acts different around different people. Like she creates entire backgrounds that are fake for different
So
people.
wild.
Yeah. So she, like, for example, she would make up like illnesses. She told one ex-husband that she had a heart murmur, but that
Oh,
wasn't real. And then she told her like current husband she had like some other health
so
issue.
pathological. Fully
Pathological. Like since she was young, has been making stuff up. She would tell her friends that her family like abused her and treated her terribly, but then she told everybody that each man she was with treated her terribly, and like it became clear that this was all fake because the number of people that she accused of like locking her away and beating her, like after interviews and after plenty of other witnesses, police were like, okay, this isn't real. Like she lies.
I'm honestly impressed with how much she could get away with if she's been with the same person since she was 12.
So, well, it wasn't the same person. So they had that like little middle school romance, but then
And then they
like,
rekindled
so
it.
she had gotten married like in between there. So they had other relationships before, like 15 years later when they got back together.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in an interview with investigators, Sherri told them she was a fan of true crime shows and randomly told them, this was before anyone knew she was faking it, randomly told them that she had read Elizabeth Smart's memoir, which is just
Great.
Then Sherri's ex-boyfriend, James Reyes, finally broke the entire case. He told investigators that he had lied when Sherri went missing and so it was the same boyfriend, sorry. So when he had said, oh, he hadn't heard from her in 6 years, when they first reached out to him, that was the same guy that she ended up being with. So James tells investigators that he had lied when Sherri went missing and when he said he hadn't seen from her or heard from her in years. In fact, this is what actually happened. Sherri had reached out and asked him for help. She told him that Keith was abusing her and she needed to escape. This was a blatant lie, but he believed her. He was like, oh my gosh, she's in danger. She's an old friend. I want to help her. So he followed Sherri's instructions. He had a friend rent a car so that he could pick Sherri up. It's a 9-hour drive. So he drives up to pick her up. She gives him explicit directions, tosses her phone, and gets in the back seat and lays down so that like no one sees her. And he has to turn around and drive 9 hours back. So he drove 9 hours up, picked her up, and then he turned around, drove 9 hours back to the point where he was like falling asleep at the wheel, but she was just in the back seat napping. They went back to his apartment and she stayed there. She stayed in his bed while he slept on the couch. And this was for several weeks, for 22 days. She's just sleeping on his bed and nothing sexual happened. It was not like a romantic thing. She just said, I need to get away from my family. And so he didn't have a TV. So he didn't realize like the extent to which this had become like a phenomenon, her missing. Like he didn't realize what he was involved, like the extent to which he was involved in this. He really didn't. So she's staying in his bedroom. He's sleeping on the couch. He just goes to work every day, and she never left his apartment. She stopped eating. She really cut down to lose the weight. She hacked off her own hair. And she self-inflicted all the wounds that she claimed came from her Hispanic abductors. So she told investigators she had been stomped on, kicked, beaten with various objects. She said they shut her in a closet. And incredibly, she actually got James to help her inflict some of the injuries, like the brand on her shoulder. She basically had him go buy a wood burning tool from, like, my imagination is Michael's or Hobby Lobby, like
right.
a wood carving tool. And then she told him to write Exodus on her shoulder. And he was like, I don't know what it means.
Which, like, that's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters. Why didn't she write Luke? That's another book of the Bible.
Hi. Like, or just a letter. A letter would have been vague enough too,
And
right?
okay, this part I find a little funny, knowing what we know, because at the hospital they were examining her for her injuries and they saw the brand and they said, wow, it looks like a series of letters, like we can't make out what it says. And she went, I think it says Exodus. Like she knew what it said because she told him to write it, but they couldn't tell because it was all scabbed and like she could.
It's so weird that she also clearly wanted Exodus of
It
all
is
things.
weird.
Like, so weird. Like, there has to be a reason behind Exodus for her to.
Yeah, I wonder. And it's like, I'm not going to read the whole Bible chapter, but I don't know, or the Bible book, but I don't know, man. It must mean something.
Book of Exodus.
Listen, I scrolled through the wiki and it's long.
Oh, okay. The main message: how God delivered the Israelites and made them His special people. The overall theme is redemption, and the word means exit or departure.
Yeah.
Okay, I learned nothing.
Yeah, it's basically like the Israelites leaving Egypt. I don't know.
It means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe she just thought it sounded cool. I don't know.
Okay.
So by early morning, by the way, the broken nose, I meant to tell you, that happened because she told him to hold, like, he wouldn't hit her. He's like, I'm not going to hit you.
Yeah.
But she told him to hold up a hockey stick because he played hockey, and she ran into it and broke her own nose.
How do you even run into?
I don't know, but the thought of it makes you want to scream.
First of all, maybe it's because I'm just bad at all physical movement.
You can
but
paddleboard, my dude, so.
I can't run fast enough to break my own nose into a stick that someone's holding.
That sounds horrific.
I feel like that took a few times.
I was thinking the same thing. And so that's how she had all these injuries, self-inflicted. But apparently on Thanksgiving morning, Sherri said she missed her kids and she wanted to go home. So she told him to rent another car and drive her back. So he dropped her off on the side of the road and she took the pillowcase and started screaming and made a whole scene. They revealed to Sherri that James had told them everything after this confession.
Mm-hmm.
They brought both Sherri and Keith back in, and by now it's August of 2020. So this has been like years that they've been trying to figure out what happened. Like so many wasted resources. They revealed to Sherri that James had told them everything, and it was too late to try and claim this was. Oh, by the way, when they told Sherri and Keith, like, oh, we know what really happened, Sherri was cornered, obviously, like she knew they were about to get found out. Keith was thrilled because he thought, oh, they finally found Sherri's
Right.
abductors. And she's like getting really upset. And there's footage of them whispering. And he's like, what is wrong? Like, this is great news. They've got your abductors. She is whispering to him, I don't want them to arrest the younger Latina woman because she saved my life. And he's like, what? And she goes, she saved my life. She's the one that dropped me off on the side of the road, so I don't want them to find her. We have to stop them from going any further. So she's like trying everything she can to like...
She's floundering.
She's floundering. She's completely floundering. So they come in and they're like, yo, there are no two Hispanic women. Like, stop saying that. That's not real. And so she's trying to deny it. She keeps crying and saying, it can't be, it can't be. And they're like, well, it is, so we don't know what to tell you. And when Keith hears this, he just walks out of the room.
Yeah,
he just
of
like
course.
doesn't know what to do. He has been by her side from day one.
And full panic mode for 3 weeks.
Full panic for 3 weeks with the two kids. He believed every word out of her mouth until it was like right in front of him, because he was that devoted to her. He really believed it until it was right in front of him and he couldn't deny it any longer. She lied over and over. He found out also during this time that like she had been talking to other men and had that affair in Michigan. So like through all of this, he is like on her side. So two locals at this point, Terry and Marilyn Smith, had been huge supporters of the Papinis because their own daughter, this is so fucked up, has been missing since 1998. And
oh no,
actually disappeared from the same road and went to the same high school as Sherri.
Oh my God. So
essentially, she staged her own kidnapping to look like the one from 1998 of her classmate. And so Terry and Marilyn had been so supportive because their own daughter had gone missing. And so for years now, they've been like helping her to recover and been there for her. And now they find out that she made it all up. And they said it was like a slap in the face. On top of that, the Latino community had been on edge ever since the abductors' descriptions and composites were released, and now people were outraged. Like, Sherri had just blatantly framed a specific group as the villain in her story for no reason other than like pointing at that group of people. So she had even told investigators that her abductors were listening to mariachi music, and this was in the car and at the house, and she described it as that annoying Mexican music. So that's classy. One man said, there are no dangerous, masked, gun-toting Hispanic Latino women here wanting to abduct your children, especially if they're white. Like, people were just pissed off. Sheriff Michael Johnson was outraged that Sherri had diverted vital resources from real cases and actual victims of human trafficking, especially in a state where many victims of trafficking are women and girls. And by the way, oftentimes from Latino communities and places like South and Central America, because white women are not usually the target of human trafficking. It's usually vulnerable people in vulnerable communities who are being told by someone they trust that they're going to find a better life and they're going to take them somewhere safer and somewhere where they can, make a good living. And then that's typically how human trafficking works. So the fact that she's like, oh, I'm white and they wanted to sell me to a police officer, like, it's just all so infuriating.
It's all just like making a full mockery of it, especially like to like you were saying earlier, like, oh, she looks 18, or I feel like there's like got to be some level of narcissism there of like, oh, I'm young and hot enough to be heavily violently sexualized.
Yes. And she said too, so she had actually just gotten a breast augmentation like the week before. And she described it as like the pain of like getting branded while my breast implants were still healing. And it's like, you did that. Like, you timed this out. Nobody branded you without, like, this was your idea. It's just bizarre. The whole thing's so bizarre. And people were like pretty shook because there was a vocal group of people online saying, and I remember this happening. I remember there being a big debate about whether she made it up. And a lot of people were like, this just does not track. Something's going on. She made it up, or she and her husband are in on it. So when it was finally revealed, a lot of people were like, told ya, but a lot of people were genuinely shocked. Obviously, like they really believed everything she said. So Sherri had blamed her fake tragedy on the very women who were most likely, by the way, to be victimized by a real human trafficker, which is super fucked up. And in the end, she really did it. Like, this was the way they put it on case file too, is like, this was not a victimless crime just because nobody died directly because of it. You know, she did untold damage to the lives of her family, her friends. I mean, her poor kids. I can't even imagine. Entire communities. And by the way, she has never given like a motive. Like, she's never even tried to explain, not even a fake motive. Like, she's never, it's bizarre. Like, she's never said, oh, I wanted money, I wanted this, that, the other.
I think she just wanted attention. It sounds like a pathological liar situation.
Yeah, I think that's all that it boils down to. So in 2022, Sherri was charged with making false statements and mail fraud because some of the money she had received. By the way, she received money from the frickin' California Victims Compensation Board to pay for her therapy and her PTSD treatment. And she had collected $30,000 from the Victims Compensation Board. Like,
they paid it back.
So, yeah, she was required to pay restitution over $300,000 because these were resources used searching for her, the $30,000 victim fund, the money from the GoFundMe that all these people are donating, you know, $50K. And by the way, this is when I start to wonder about this fucking mystery businessman who's offering a 6-figure sum. Like, that's so shady to me. And it really makes me wonder if she was just on the computer at this guy's house, like, posting.
It has to be.
And I don't know, like, this has never been addressed in any of the sources I looked at, but it's just a thought. Like, have we looked into this, guys? Because who's this anonymous businessman that nobody has ever named who just felt compelled to offer $500,000 or whatever it was for someone he doesn't know? The whole thing is just shady. It's just weird. So, as much as she was ordered to pay restitution, the judge commented that she was unlikely to ever pay it back because it was hard to imagine anyone ever hiring Sherri to work again.
Oh my God.
So he's like, good luck getting your money back. No one's going to hire her.
Exactly. Wow.
She was also sentenced to 18 months in prison. And the one, like, it's not even really a silver lining, but like the one good move, I guess, is that Keith, who had stood by her through the affairs, through all of this, the day he found out that she made it up, he filed for divorce that day.
Good.
And he told the press, my current focus is on moving on and doing everything I can to provide my 2 children with as normal, healthy, and happy of a life as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Sherri Papini.
Woo,
and I'm sorry I misled you. I know I do that sometimes, and I felt bad about it this time because I'm like,
no, I love the twist.
Okay, because if you frame it a certain way, it's like hard to believe that it's a hoax. But then the way they presented it on Case File, which I think they did a really good coverage of it, was like from the beginning they kind of hinted that it was a hoax. Like they said, you know, they talked about all the people who were skeptical, but I kind of left all that out because I was like, I want it to be a plot twist.
I love a plot twist. I love the drama.
Yes, I know.
Especially because I had just said, oh, that would be a stupid hoax or something. And
I know,
like,
you were like, what? Nice. You're like, funny hoax. I'm like, yeah, but you're right. Like, not funny at all. Really not funny. And just Looney Tunes, man. It's just bananas. It's noodles all the way to the top.
Well, great story. Wow. Oh my gosh.
What a doozy.
I mean, terrible. I hope Keith is doing okay. Oh, you know. Wow.
I know, me too. And the kids, I mean, you know, all you can hope is like, hey, they come out of this with, I don't know, just love and support and feel equipped to live their lives. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it can be so daunting to think of like, what if you went through that? What if your kids went through that? But I don't know. I hope that at least they come out stronger on the other side. I don't know.
Oh, well, good job, Christine. And
Thanks.
I don't know what to say for after that. How do we Sagoo out of here?
So anyway, let's Sagoo on out. We need an ending. Like, I feel like every freaking podcast has like just an ending that's like And this is that, and this has been that, and that's why we drink. I feel like we need to find a smoother way, you know?
It'll never happen, it seems.
Oh, I'm going to send you photos, by the way. I forgot.
Oh, okay.
Just to like give you an idea, and that way Eva can put them on Instagram.
Good call.
We're not going to post the kids because that is inappropriate, but you know, she looks to me.
Oh my God, she's all beaten up.
I know, in those sweatpants, and those sweatpants ended up being that guy's James's sweatpants.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why they only found male DNA. And like, I didn't really give the full picture, but it took years to find out who this mystery person was. Like, it took years and years. So it wasn't as quick as like, oh, we found male DNA, let's match it. Like, they didn't know for many years.
Oh my gosh.
So here are just some photos. But yeah, I mean, what a fucking... You know who she looks like to me? That woman from Criminal Minds.
Oh,
the blonde one.
Hey, well, what are you doing for
not
this?
Criminal Minds. SVU. I'm sorry, SVU. The one who's kind of, I think it's SVU, right? Am I wrong?
Now I don't know anyone that I was
Detective
thinking of.
Rollins. Hold on. Let me send you a picture.
Kind of. Who was I thinking of for Criminal Minds? I don't know.
Here, this is the one. I'll send you this separately so that Eva doesn't think this is part of the...
No, I don't want Amanda Rollins.
Amanda Rollins, yeah. I think they look alike. Anyway.
What are you doing for the rest of the day, Christine?
Well, I'm packing. What are you doing?
I don't know. Oh, I'm holding the baby.
Oh, you're seeing the baby. Seeing baby.
Well, thank you everyone for listening again for the 341st time in your life.
I'm so proud of you and thankful for you all.
And I guess we'll see you next week. We have, good stuff on Patreon to keep you busy in the meantime. We've got our listeners episodes. You can also submit your own stories for the next episode if you'd like, and all that good stuff. Find us on social media. I'm always up to some bullshit on Instagram.
That is true. I can confirm that.
And and good luck to
follow my Sweden trip on Instagram. Although probably by the time this comes out, I'll probably be home. So I don't know when this comes out, but
until then, stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. That's
why
we
drink.
God, we need a better ending.